It was a bitterly cold evening in Los Angeles. People hurried past, clutching their coats, faces buried in scarves, rushing to escape the chill. But among the sea of rushing strangers sat a man almost invisible to the world, an old homeless man with tired eyes and a blanket that barely kept out the cold. Every click keeps these untold stories alive. Like and subscribe to help us share more. His name was Daniel Carter. Once upon a time, Daniel had a family, a career, and dreams. But life had stolen those from him, leaving him with nothing more than a small torn backpack, a worn-out sleeping bag, and a heart that still, somehow, clung to kindness. On this night, with his last piece of bread in his hands, Daniel spotted another soul sitting alone on a bench across the street. Thin, trembling, and hungry, and though Daniel had nothing, he chose to share. He broke the bread in half and walked over. "Here," he whispered softly, pressing it into the stranger's hands. The man looked up, shocked. "Why would you give this to me? You look like you need it more." Daniel smiled faintly. "Because sometimes, we all just need to know someone cares." Neither of them knew that within minutes, a figure would emerge from the shadows. Someone whose very name would change the course of Daniel's life forever. That man was Keanu Reeves. Daniel wasn't always homeless. Years ago, he was a skilled carpenter. He had a wife, Marianne, and a little daughter named Lily. They lived in a modest house in the outskirts of Los Angeles, where Daniel would spend his days building furniture, humming along to old records while Lily played in the yard. But life, cruel as it is, had other plans. When Lily was 7, she fell gravely ill. Daniel and Marianne spent every penny on hospital bills, trying to save her. Despite their efforts, Lily passed away on a quiet winter morning, her favorite teddy bear still clutched in her arms. The grief tore Daniel and Marianne apart. She left, unable to face the memories. Daniel, shattered, lost himself in despair. Work dried up, bills piled high, and eventually he lost his home. What was once a family man's warm life turned into years of drifting on sidewalks and sleeping under bridges. But through it all, one thing remained: his kindness. Daniel had nothing, but he always found a way to share the little scraps he had with others. A sandwich with another homeless man, a blanket with a shivering dog, a smile with strangers who ignored him. It was the only thing keeping him human. On this night, Daniel had spent hours digging through trash bins and asking for change. He'd only managed to buy a small loaf of bread. His stomach growled, but he told himself it was enough. As he prepared to take a bite, his eyes wandered across the dimly lit street. On a bench sat another man, clothes ragged, hair matted, eyes wide with fear and hopelessness. Daniel recognized the look instantly. Hunger, desperation. Without hesitation, Daniel tore the bread in half, tucked one piece into his pocket, and walked toward the stranger. The man looked up nervously as Daniel approached. "You hungry?" Daniel asked. The man hesitated, then nodded slowly. Daniel handed him the bread. "Take it. I've had enough." The man blinked in disbelief. "Why would you? You don't even know me." Daniel smiled softly, though his own hunger gnawed at him. "Because I know what it feels like to be forgotten, and no one deserves that." The man's lips trembled. He took the bread, whispered a thank you, and began to eat. And then, as if out of nowhere, a voice broke the silence. "I saw what you just did." Daniel turned. His heart skipped a beat. Walking toward him, dressed in a simple dark coat and jeans, was a man whose face was unmistakable. Keanu Reeves. At first, Daniel thought he was imagining it. Maybe his hunger had gotten the best of him. But no, the man standing before him, with that gentle yet piercing gaze, was real. The stranger with the bread nearly dropped it, his mouth falling open. You're Keanu Reeves." Keanu gave a small smile. "Yeah, that's me." He turned to Daniel. "But right now, I'm just someone who saw an incredible act of kindness." Daniel blinked, stunned into silence. He didn't know what to say. Celebrities didn't talk to people like him. They didn't even notice people like him. But Keanu wasn't like most people. Keanu crouched down so he was eye level with Daniel. His voice was calm, sincere. "I watched you give away your bread," he said. "You didn't know anyone was looking. You didn't do it for attention. You did it because it's who you are." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "It was nothing, just a piece of bread." "No," Keanu shook his head. "It was everything. You gave away what little you had left. That's not nothing. That's humanity." Daniel's throat tightened. Nobody had spoken to him like that in years. Nobody had seen him. Keanu continued, "What's your name?" "Daniel," he whispered. "Well, Daniel," Keanu said softly, "I think it's time someone did something for you." At first, Daniel thought Keanu meant giving him money. He braced himself, ready to refuse. Pride was one of the few things he had left. But Keanu didn't pull out his wallet. Instead, he sat down next to Daniel on the curb. "Tell me your story," he said. Daniel hesitated. But something in Keanu's eyes, the genuine kindness, the patience, made him open up. For the first time in years, Daniel told someone everything. About Lily, about Marianne, about losing his home, his job, his life, about how every day felt like drowning. Yet he still tried to keep a spark of kindness alive. Keanu listened, really listened, not interrupting, not pitying, just listening. When Daniel finished, tears streaking his weathered face, Keanu put a hand on his shoulder. "You've been through hell," he said softly, "but I believe your story isn't over yet." Daniel shook his head. "It's too late for me." Keanu's eyes narrowed. "No, it's never too late." Keanu stood up and pulled out his phone. He made a quick call. Minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. Out stepped two men, assistants but not the flashy Hollywood kind. They carried blankets, food, and a thermos of hot coffee. Keanu motioned to Daniel. "Tonight, you're coming with me." Daniel froze. "What? You can't." "I'm not." Keanu interrupted gently. "You've spent years giving what little you had to others. It's time someone gave something back." He helped Daniel into the car. For the first time in years, Daniel sat in a warm seat, holding hot coffee in his hands. His body shook. Not from cold this time, but from disbelief. Keanu took him to a small, quiet hotel. Not a palace. Not something for the cameras. Just a clean bed, a hot shower, and dignity. As Daniel lay down that night, fresh sheets beneath him, tears streaming down his face, he whispered to himself, "Thank you, Lily. Thank you for sending him." But Keanu wasn't finished. Over the next weeks, Keanu arranged for Daniel to meet with counselors, doctors, and job placement programs. Quietly, without the press, without the world knowing, Daniel began to rebuild. Slowly, painfully, but this time he wasn't alone. And one morning, as Daniel worked sanding wood in a carpentry shop Keanu had quietly helped him find, he realized something. He felt alive again. The kindness of one man had reignited the fire he thought he had lost forever. Daniel once believed his story was over, that he had nothing left to give. But one act of kindness, sharing bread with a stranger, set off a chain of events that changed his life. And Keanu Reeves? He reminded us all of something vital. Real heroes don't wear capes. They show up when no one else will. Because sometimes, the smallest acts of compassion ripple into miracles. Thanks for watching.